I'm going to turn it over now to Jim Gusek. Jim, if you want to unmute yourself and then video, turn the video on, then people can
Okay.
Yeah, and then you might, once you finish introducing yourself, maybe turn the video back off so we save some of our bandwidth.
Okay. Thanks for hanging in there for the last presentation of the afternoon. My name is Jim Gusek. I'm a senior project manager with Lincoln Engineering, which I joined 2 years ago. I'm based in Golden, Colorado, not far from my alma mater, Colorado School of Mines. I'm a mining engineer by training and a registered professional engineer in 4 states. My 40+ year career has been focused on passive treatment of mining influenced water and the prevention of acid rock drainage using bactericides. And this second technology is going to be the focus of my talk today. So thanks for inviting us again. And our outline, basically I'm going to be covering 4 main topics: a little bit of ARD suppression and a little bit of background, a look at the site, and how we tested the concept of using brewery waste to suppress acid rock drainage and the test results. And then full disclosure, I got a little bit of a different commercial at the very end. So let's get started. When we start looking at ARD formation, we'd like you to understand it's analogous to the combustion triangle that we all learned in elementary school. You cut off the air, you cut off the fuel, cut off the heat supplies, and you don't have fire. Same thing happens with acid rock drainage. It's similar. You need pyrite, of course, and air and water, and not fully appreciated acetylthiobacillus ferrooxidants. So if you cut off one or more of these corners of the ARD tetrahedron, the ARD kinetics are greatly suppressed. But if you cut off the bacteria corner, you can slow down the kinetics of ARD formation by 3 orders of magnitude. So that's quite a bit. But it's not enough to kill the bad bacteria. Just killing that bacteria leads to some short-term control, maybe on the order of months, but you need to do something else, something different, so that you can start getting towards this pathway to walk away. And so basically what you really need to do is to replace the bad bacteria with good bacteria. With apologies to Jamie Lee Curtis and the folks who make Activia, I think this is kind of a probiotic pathway to walk away for perpetual ARD treatment. So how does a microbe survive, this acetylthiobacillus survive in this low pH water? And we're talking pHs down in the, in the low 2s or 1s or even 0. So what has happened is that this bacteria has evolved an oily cloak that keeps the ARD out of the protoplasm, which is maintained at a pH of 7. It uses these proton pumps, and basically it keeps everything, is circumneutral. Now, sodium oral sulfate, which is think it's the active ingredient in shampoo, is basically breaks through this oily cloak, and the interior is flooded with the acid and basically kills the bug. It stews in its own juices, and it's hard to evolve this adaptive strategy. But on the other hand, we also have organic acids, are also bactericides. But unlike the soap, these organic acids just weaken that cell membrane, kind of like stab, and so that the contents actually leak out. And so it's almost like stabbing someone in an artery. So the cool thing about this is that the humic acids generated by plants in the root zone, say above a fully reclaimed mine site, are a sustainable source of bactericides. So vegetation, if you look at it more than just a green toupee, it's a gift that keeps on giving. So organic amendments, work too, and a lot of these are considered waste. And like I said earlier, the mechanism is a little different from the shampoo. But as you'll see, we focus mostly on this spent brewery grain, which was discussed by Lindsay et al. In a paper in 2010. And so we've also added in some of our some of this experiment, we use waste milk and dairy products, and you'll see how well this stuff is going to work. So why would we use spent brewery grain? You know, when you look at it, it's kind of like a soggy granola bar, but it can hold a lot of moisture. It's very difficult to dry out. And this can work to our advantage in a lot of different ways. But here's some other advantages. It's got a lot going for it. It's almost everywhere. And research a decade ago, again, Lindsay et al., suggests that it can suppress ARD. It can also help plants grow on mine waste, and using it to reclaim mine land also helps to kind of close the loop in a beneficial use. And so we thought that all of these characteristics are make it a good candidate for in this application. And so when my co-author Tahne saw me give a presentation in 2008 in Creed, she thought it was a great concept. So, one thing led to another, and here we are. Now, Jason Willis talked about this site earlier, and he talked about Sneffels Creek and how they did some reclamation in this area. He talked about the red tailings and the gray tailings. And so with Tahne's connections on the western slope, this was our identified site where we're going to obtain some materials to test. And so with the cooperation of the landowners, we embarked on collecting preliminary samples for characterization in 2019. There's about 24,000 cubic yards of tailings at this site. And the tailings only have about 3.1 tons of pyritic sulfur per kiloton. So that's only 0.31%, which isn't much. But because of the lack of alkalinity, the tailings have a base pH of 3.4 and exhibit elevated amounts of lead along with other heavy metals, including cadmium and silver. So I've never seen this in the information on the site, but I suspect that one source of the lead in the red tailings is the mineral anglesite, which is a lead or a lead sulfide weathering product. We got any geochemists out there? Does this make any sense? These tailings have been around for a long time. They've been weathering for over a century. So samples were collected in the fall and early winter of 2019. Thanks to, again, Tahne and to Jeff Literal from the Colorado Department of Reclamation Mining. I forget what DRMS stands for. And safety, of course. Hope we all did our safety share at the start of work today. So we also, Tahne had some great help from the students at the Ouray High School science program and their teacher, Beth Lakin. I can see what had happened. Excuse me, but you need to get a permission slip from your parents to do what? Okay, but we're hopefully, this has inspired maybe some future engineers and scientists who go on to maybe do more of this further in the future. So based on some preliminary lab screening test results, we were using some old US Bureau Mines protocols. We're using sodium oral sulfate rinses just to characterize these materials. We developed a really ambitious suite of kinetic cell tests, these different recipes. Now, most of the tests involve brewery waste. And we had some milk and some sodium oral sulfate. And we had 3 controls, numbers 1 and 2, and number 20, which is basically a bucket filled with just native soil. There's no tailings, or it was just vegetation for a background. But most of all, these test cells, most but not all these test cells had a vegetative cover that was provided by a native seed mix planted in a biotic soil medium. So you can see across the top, we've got 20 kilograms of red tailings, various amounts from low to high and brewery waste among these different sets. And then we added some milk and some agricultural lime in a lot of them. We inoculated with manure. Remember, we said we had to have some probiotic sources of microbes. So we looked at just plain old cow manure, composted from local hardware store, and we tried to get a vegetative cover to grow on a lot of these cells. So over several days, we took all these samples, like 1,500 pounds of sample, and we carefully cone and quartered it, mixed it up with the various recipes, and placed them in 5-gallon buckets. And so we placed these buckets outside, fully exposed to the elements. And as you can see, we've got some snow on the ground here. And these were assembled in Tahne's backyard in January of 2020. Initially, we were concerned about the brewery waste attracting the local deer herd, but they seemed to lose interest once the brewery waste was mixed in with the tailings. As I said earlier, we used a seed mix on some of these, on some of the test cells, but they weren't too successful. We used the same one that the DRMS would have used on the site, and we multiplied it times 3. And 3 test cells didn't receive any seed at all. And as you can see in these photos, the revegetation experiment wasn't very successful. However, we think that the plant growth media on the surface may have prevented some oxygen exchange. Again, we're cutting off another leg of the ARD tetrahedron. And we've had this problem on other projects. So what did we measure? Well, first of all, we measured field parameters: pH, oxidation reduction potential, or ORP, conductivity, temperature, and alkalinity. And Tahne took notes of the leachate appearance, and we semi-tracked the water balance in and out of the test cells. Due to the dry weather, she had to add synthetic rain to generate leachate. And I want to say, this is a pro bono test. This is basically funded by Tahne and Lincoln Engineering. And so she submitted three metals events or samples to the Colorado School of Mines to do metals and sulfate analysis using ICP, atomic emission spectroscopy. And her biggest challenge was filtering some of these high organic content leachates. So let's take a look at some of the data. So here are the field measurements from the July event. There's a lot of data here, but let's focus on the clear leachates that are circled or that are highlighted here. Numbers 3, 12, and 19. They have consistently low conductivity rates or low conductivity numbers. Circumneutral pHs, 7.5, 7.3, 6.6, and modest alkalinity numbers, 40, 30, 15 milligrams per liter. Not as high as some of them. I mean, 270 milligrams per liter. This is a lot of alkalinity in a short time. But look at the conductivity. And we did see, going from low concentrations of brewery waste to the high concentrations of brewery waste tracked very well with increases in conductivity and, generally speaking, increases in alkalinity. So you can look at the data more closely at your leisure if you, pause the presentation which is being recorded. And so the clear leachate cells compare favorably with the control plus the vegetation number 2. Again, this is, we've got very weak T, we've got some alkalinity going, which shows that vegetation, which is what basically Jason and the folks were doing in the reclamation of this site, that's basically what they were doing. And so when we start looking at the November sampling event, so this is the final sampling event, the control pH is still fairly low. The control plus the vegetation still hanging in there, looking pretty good. We've got some clear leachate. The low brewery waste plus lime, number 6. We got clear leachate, very low conductivity. Oxidation potential is fairly, right kind of in the middle. Same with number 11, seeing clear leachate. So again, the clear leachate cells compare favorably with control plus vegetation, which is number 2. And again, this is suggesting that vegetation alone is not a bad idea. And so, but we do have some interesting green leachate. We have some interesting green leachates coming out of some of these. And we suspected, this is numbers 3, 9, and 15, we suspect this to be ferrous iron. So now let's look at the ICP metals in the sulfate. So here's where the distinctions start to emerge. The two controls, numbers 1 and 2, released a lot of lead, 2.7, 2.3 milligrams per liter of lead in the first rinse. And even towards the end of the test, the control is still leaching out 4.1 milligrams per liter of lead. Not too much sulfate, and the iron, which is again pretty low, and it shows that the control has also got some lead mobilization. So this is pretty, something that you don't want to pursue. But also, we were seeing a lot of lead being released in some of the cells that contain lower, some of the brewery waste, but this was just brewery waste that was applied in the upper half of the zone in the kinetic cell test. And also, these are the ones 16 through 19. These are the ones that contained the sodium oryl sulfate. So we're seeing a lot of lead being leached out of these cells at startup, which is something that we wouldn't necessarily want to do. The one thing I want to point out is that even after at the end of the experiment, the control with the vegetation, we're still having some leachate coming out, this 0.05 milligrams per liter of lead. And this is something that Jason, you might want to watch in the full scale application. So most of the brewery waste cells, with the exception of number 5, released very little at startup. And number 3 is looking pretty good, with low lead, low sulfate, and virtually no iron being being released. So this is, no pyrite oxidation is happening in number 3. Number 6 isn't far behind. And number 9 rounds out the favorites, which with respect to low lead concentrations, reasonable sulfate concentrations, and low iron concentrations. So in the green cells, these are the ones that produce green leachate. Again, this is probably ferrous iron. And only number 15 with the high brewery waste exhibited really high iron, but number 5 leachate was a weak tan color in the final sampling event. So the one thing about the control leachate was always iron and showed elevated lead throughout the test. So when we start looking at the pHs, again, we kind of group things with the brewery waste kinetic cell test. There was a little bit of kinetic cell test or using milk. And here we use kinetic cells or brewery waste only in the upper half. And you can see that generally speaking, our 3 stars generally had some of the higher pH values, but not too high. Again, this is indicative of maybe doing too much. But we're also seeing that when we first started up, that the pH took several months to get up to some circumneutral values. So the biological activity didn't happen overnight. We had to be patient before it finally kicked in. So now let's look at the oxidation reduction potential. We had some really low observations here. I mean, some of these outliers, so I mean, almost 50 millivolts, 125 millivolts. These are very, very low numbers and indicative of conditions that would really slow down pyrite oxidation. So low ORP is a good thing. And so far, our favorites of number 3, number 6, and number 9 all have relatively low ORP values, and the lowest value, some of the lowest. And this milk one was really impressive. So our potential winners are numbers 3, 6, and 9, which had the lowest brewery waste amounts among the relative clusters. And this goes to show that you can have too much of a good thing. The brewery waste or the milk in high amounts may not be appropriate in all situations. Again, if you're what was happening with these, what we theorize, what was happening in these high ORP, these high brewery waste concentrations, is that the ORP, the reducing conditions, were causing the release, or actually the conversion of iron oxyhydroxides that had absorbed a lot of lead, a lot of zinc, et cetera, absorbed these things to them, and they were very quickly went to reducing conditions, so that iron +3 went to iron +2, and all these metals were released, and they were released faster than the sulfate reducing bacteria, which were also present from the manure. They were being reduced faster than the sulfate reducers could reduce them back into sulfides. So again, you can have too much of a good thing. And I think if there were more pyrite present in the tailings, or they weren't as weathered, perhaps these mixtures would have done better. So no good deed goes unpunished. For a variety of reasons, we could not return the materials back to the site or find a new home for them. They failed the TCLP test for lead. So Tahne arranged with the Clean Management Environmental Group to have these materials carted off in 55-gallon drums. And Tahne spoke very highly to these folks. Total price tag for disposal was $3,000. So I'd like to acknowledge our collaborators and make sure that you check out the Colorado Boy Brewery the next time you're in Western Colorado. And also want to thank the folks at the Ouray High School science program and Jeff Littoral at the Colorado Division of Mining Reclamation and Safety. So thank you for attention. I hope your mind is a little bit prepared. Chance favors the prepared mind. Yeah, I hope your mind is a little bit more prepared, especially if you down your next beer. So cheers. And I got one more slide left. Okay, here's the commercial. When the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And when I started my career in passive treatment, I thought that biochemical reactors, or BCRs, could solve almost any mining influenced water problem. So if I fast forward a few decades, the reality is that passive treatment design toolbox contains many more options. And if you're an environmental professional confronted with the question as to whether passive treatment processes could work at your site, maybe Lincoln Engineering can help. We've condensed our experience into a simple, customized, proof passive test kit that we'd ship to you with clear instructions geared to guide you or your staff in assessing the basics of passively treating your mining influenced water. In the process, you'll have Lincoln's experience supporting you every step of the way. Usually we have like a 2-month testing program. And so we think that proof passive test results could provide you with the data to make an informed decision about adopting this technology and closing your site. And with that, I guess we're open for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. As always, it's great to see these ongoing experiments that you keep dabbling with. Tom Crawford said, FYI, the Greens Creek gold, silver, zinc, lead mine near Juneau experimented with using spent brewery waste as an amendment to their dry stack tailings. Disposal.
I've been there.
So you might know.
This was 20 years ago. So yes, please, sorry.
Yeah, so it's a disposal circa 2007 to 2011, and he said, I'm not sure of the results. Do you have any? You don't have any history on that? Yeah. No,
I don't.
Yeah, if anybody does in the participants, go ahead and type in your ideas there.
But like I said, the main takeaway from this presentation is that you can add too much. Really, you can have too much of a good thing. In every case, number 3, 6, and 9 were the low end of the brewery waste concentrations, And so that, I think we would, if we were to take this forward, maybe we would lower it even further so that maybe the brewery waste can be extended, the effects could be extended even further with less. So
Nice. I know of a couple of mine sites that need closure attention and reclamation attention, more importantly, and they're close to breweries. So what the heck?
What the heck? Absolutely. Because otherwise,
So
this stuff gets shipped to a landfill.
I know, right? Let's put it to
use. Or it goes to, say, goes to a local farm. The pigs get fat, or the cows get fat on it,
and drunk, or maybe not. So I will ask all of our panelists to go ahead and turn their videos on, and we'll keep an eye on the Q&A section. I've got a couple of questions, Jim, specifically to you before we jump into the whole group here. The biological processes you indicated were sort of slow. Did that have anything to do with elevation and temp? Would you expect a better, like in Nevada, lower elevations, warmer temperatures, maybe less severe?
Absolutely. And again, we started the test in January of 2020. And this is just before COVID hit.
Oh,
and
gosh.
so to be honest with you, we assembled them, and it wasn't at the mine site. This was about, I want to say, maybe 1,000 or 1,500 feet lower in elevation. But still, what happened to these happened to our kinetics test cells is that they almost froze overnight. Yeah. And so it took a while for things to thaw out. And so, I think that, that's it's always the way experiments work.
But you wanted to have it out in the environment that they'd be going in anyway. So
yes,
all right. Well, let's get the rest of the panelists, and I'll throw out a question now to kind of motivate others on the participating. The participants, feel free to throw out some questions. But for all of you, what kind of partnerships are you looking to create, or say to walk away from today's panel discussion? What kind of partnerships can we all form together to address some of our site issues? I know that Austin, with your site, it's quite specific, but TNC, TU, and others, are there, what can we all do to kind of collaborate together to advance our work and our interests, our passion towards AML site cleanups? Austin, you're on deck first. What the heck?
Thanks. I think that one of Perpetua's goals, as it's always been, is basically to come up with a mechanism to restore the stibnite site. That's where we're, and also have a commercially viable mining project that results in site restoration. So I think that one of our goals for the especially with the early phases of the administrative agreement that we signed, is to demonstrate that the company is capable of taking this on and to basically demonstrate a successful restoration project on the site, and basically build stakeholder support through this. But more broadly, I think that a lot of people in the company, myself included, feel strongly that mining companies are able to bring solutions to the table for restoration projects that might not be financially viable for other Good Samaritans, especially in terms of being able to move large amounts of material cost efficiently and incorporate restorative plans into operational plans. So I think this is something that the company's really interested in. This is really a showcase for us, and we're hoping that we can make it as a reality.
Yeah, perfect, great. Jaina or Jason?
I can just answer. I touched on the partnerships that we have been working to cultivate a little bit in our work, but really it takes a village. We really are working to bring together state agencies and the Bureau of Land Management to talk about statewide energy planning. We're also actively reaching out to mining companies, and we work closely with the Nevada Mining Association, which may seem like a strange bedfellow for us, but actually I think there's a lot of potential there that the Mining Association recognizes to benefit mines and mining companies, and so they've been a good partner. We also, utility companies are really important for the work that we do, as well as just the local communities where these potential sites are located near. I think ensuring that we have community support and buy-in for the projects that we're working on, sometimes in rural areas or just in general, sometimes people are wary of renewable development. So, just making it palatable, I think, for people and thinking about renewable development, especially as it's connected with a mine site, but also not just solely to service the mine site, but also to service a larger goal of electrifying our systems, our energy systems. And we just think it'll be increasingly important to do that. So those are some of the main stakeholders that we've been engaging.
Yeah, and I don't see the Nevada Mining Association or any other association as being a strange bedfellow. I think parroting what Austin said, the industry comes with a lot of experience in tried and true and successful and not so successful reclamation and use of sites. And obviously we know how to move a lot of dirt and to do it very efficiently. So I actually see the industry as a great partner in being able to bring the price down in whatever we're doing on the AML site, whether it's simply what Jason does in restorative stuff or what you're proposing in a reuse and a co-use and a continuing industrialization, if you will, of the site. Jason, how about you?
Yeah, and I think you and Austin and Jaina brought up good points. I think partnerships have been pretty critical to us taking on these types of projects over the years. I mean, whenever I do a spiel on a particular case study, there's probably an acronym list of like 12 different entities that are involved, whether it's federal, state, local, and that's like the method to the madness for this type of work is they're so complicated, they're mixed ownership. Like unless you're bringing in that many partners, you're not really getting work done. And I mean, us as an organization, we do have relationships with industry, Freeport and Newmont and Uray Silver Mines and, various other entities that we partner with on some of these sites. Like there is a financial partnership to get more work done on the ground, but for us, like it's not the dirt moving, it's the more technical input, oversight, expertise, and suggestions. I mean, they're doing some of the best projects, and then we can have that trickle down to some of the smaller projects that we're working on. So I think that it's industry and agency. And I mean, I think the one biggest takeaway for us over the last couple of years is transparency, trying to collaborate with agencies and be very upfront and try to get everybody on the same page is almost like, as much as I dislike being maybe the mediator on a lot of those things, like sometimes you have to get as many people behind what you're trying to do and be that shepherder to kind of get those projects over the finish line.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think what Jim brings to the table is this uniqueness, the innovations that industry and its service providers are attempting to, to try to help in reclaiming a site and making that reclamation and or closure far more effective and efficient and complete. I know that 2 years ago, I think it was Jim, that you gave the talk on, milk byproducts used, spent milk. I just thought that was great. Powdered milk, another place, another way to use it. But it's still been planted in my head as I have a number of different clients and sites that may have application either for that or other spent waste like brewery waste. So let's see, it was an excellent cross-reference that here Jason was highlighting Sneffels Creek, and then there you were, Jim, sort of experimenting with some new stuff.
We actually were going to try and do some test plots, but the weather closed in on us, and it wasn't possible to get in there and do anything. So
yeah, be interesting to see, you know, as we keep these AML summits going, maybe you guys will have some kind of a partnership that that allows for that to say this experimentation worked. And then
if there's anybody out there who has funding who would be willing to support that, that would be good.
Yeah. How about, do you guys have, as I look over my notes, do you guys have any questions for one another that might help spur on the, I don't see any new questions coming into the groups. Well, maybe we're finished 25 minutes early, huh?
Well, I might say one more thing about this spent brewery grain and milk.
Yeah, sure.
We are currently working on a mine site's coal mines in Alabama. It's a coal refuse pile, and we've got 26 kinetic cell tests that we're going, similar to what we just did at the for the Atlas mine. And I want to thank, you know, my co-authors and for helping us actually pioneer the use of this, because we took the results of this Atlas tailings and immediately rolled it into applying this at a site in Alabama, coal site. And it just shows that one little thing, you know, people are listening. I mean, I first heard about milk or brewery waste, say milk, at a mining conference, an EPA conference in 2008 in Denver, and said, wow, that'd be really cool if that could work. And it's taken me a while to get it, you know, to try to get it to a mature level, but it's coming.
Yeah, that's what I think is interesting, is that, you know, the more that we kind of push the envelope, well, let's go try this, or, you know, a waste byproduct all of a sudden might become a reclamation benefit. There's nothing wrong with that for any industry application. Yeah, so I thank you all. I've asked my questions. I think everybody really collaborated well, even though there was no co-sharing of PowerPoints. There was a lot of synergies between them. I thank you guys immensely for coming to the table in these wonderfully strange COVID times and doing it by Zoom. And next year, it is our plan to host this in Phoenix. And if anything, the beginning of the Zoom summit today illustrates immensely the need to get back together so we can avoid, although I do see Zoom as being even a part of our next summit, that those that can't travel, that we maybe have some kind of a feed that would help us to get further and further out. This one was well attended right up to the end. We still have quite a few people on, and had a lot of people signing up. So obviously this is an issue that there's a lot of folks that are interested in. So if you have nothing else to add, oh, somebody just wrote, yeah, thanks Laura for that nudge. The PowerPoints will be available. They will be placed on MMSA's website. We'll probably get them in PDF formats so that they, one, are easily transferable to the website, and that'll happen, I would think, within a week or something, between, where Susan will probably get those posted up. Will there be a list of attendees? I think we've provided that in the past. Thanks Tom Crawford for that. I will ensure that that is what we've done in the past. I do believe we have, and I just want to make sure that that's within protocol. Yeah, so if nothing else, thanks so much, you guys. We're about 20 minutes early, so enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay safe.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks to all the attendees as well. See you later.